Dr. Knock, thanks for joining us here at Medpage today's Medfluencers. You are definitely a Medfluencer. Thanks for coming along and chatting with us today.
Good morning. Yeah, happy to be here. Kind of a newfound side of things, medfluencing, but it's been fun figuring it out.
And we're going to be talking a little bit longer than your normal video goes. You normally do things in less than a minute on TikTok. So we're going to be talking a little bit longer than that. But how do you do that? How do you keep science down to a minute?
It takes a long time. So, the final product is a minute, but it can easily take an hour or 2 hours to spend time, coming up with a topic people want to hear about, reading the research study, coming up with what you're going to say, and then editing it down. It's pretty challenging figuring out what's most crucial. It's far easier to make a 3-minute video than a 1-minute video, it seems like it wouldn't be the case, but it's definitely pretty tough to cut things down.
Why did you decide to go with TikTok as your medium? You didn't really get into the social media, science, communication side of things until COVID started.
Right. To be honest, I kind of stumbled into it. And so the selection of TikTok as a platform was not a well thought out decision. I was kind of using TikTok and Instagram and YouTube casually as a user. And TikTok seemed to be where the most organic growth was happening, both of, like fun dancing types of accounts, but also of just rampant COVID misinformation. And so at the time, back at the beginning of the pandemic, I was seeing like all this COVID misinformation on the platform, and there was essentially no science on the platform at the time. Until now, there's still basically a couple handfuls of actual scientists and medical professionals on the platform. So I figured maybe it was right for an opportunity to try to give some scientific facts to try to address the scientific or unscientific unfacts.
Yeah. Wow. So you were one of the first to really step into that space, and then you had to figure out how to communicate all of that science in less than a minute. What was your trick at the start of things to figure out how to distill that information down?
Yeah, largely trial and error. I don't have much background. My background is in science, lab science, immunology, pharmaceutical sciences. Not much experience in social media or, media at all. And so it was a lot of trying things out, seeing what types of formats worked well, and then kind of iterate on top of those. A lot of stuff I did, even now, a lot of stuff just totally fails. And you kind of learn from it. Basically, all you have to do is keep putting out content. Don't be afraid of failing, because it's going to happen the vast majority of the time, at least in my case, and just try to see what works well and go with that.
So give us an example of something that failed and something that went well.
Yeah, it's often not what you would expect. And so you can put together a really fun video, spend a lot of time working on getting the graphics exactly right and all these stickers that pop up that are fun and everything, like showing some data figures, and you think like, this is going to be a home run video. And then it totally flops. And then you're just sitting there with your phone talking into it in like one shot. You record it in 5 minutes and it goes super viral or something, just because it resonates as being authentic. I think that's a big part of both on TikTok and all platforms these days, as people are kind of desensitized to hyper professional productions. It just doesn't seem real. And so that's part of the attraction of having medfluencers on all platforms, is that, you're listening to a real person who has real thoughts and a real life, and you feel like you can trust them more.
Do you think that's why you have such exponential growth, especially on TikTok, is people do feel like they can trust you because you maybe don't come across as a typical health communicator?
That may be part of it. And so that's why I'm also not hesitant to include some jokes, or to, like use some funny audios to make jokes about science or COVID or whatever it is. I don't try to keep it 100% like I'm presenting at a medical research conference, because that's not what people want to see. It's like a careful balance between education and entertainment. And if you leave out the entertainment side, your organic reach is going to be like 1/10 of what it would be, unless you're like super, super top tier on the educational side. You need some entertainment in there. And so it's tough to mix those two.
Yeah, you do get a little bit silly at times. Is that part of your shtick in the app? Is to engage in that little joke, silly way?
Yeah, it's partially strategic, and it's also partially just fun to do.
That's just who you are.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Part
So
of
what's
being
the strategy then? Let's talk a little bit more about that. You've seen those videos that where you don't have the stickers, you don't have the extra curated content not go viral, and you've seen the ones where you're just yourself and silly go viral. Is that essentially what it comes down to?
most of the time. But then there's outliers where the super well polished content does do super well. And so it's really hard to very clearly define a strategy that pretty consistently works. You get a better idea over time. But my strategy has recently mostly been just keep making content, daily or at least every other day. Just put stuff out there and see what's resonating with people. Check your comments and your DMs. Like, even if I can't respond to all my DMs, I read all of them, or the vast majority of them, to see what people have questions about. And then if I see I've gotten 20 messages in a day about a COVID vaccine ingredient or something, I'll make a video about that. And that's typically a pretty good predictor that something's going to go well.
You work nine to five, so to speak, right, in a
Right.
lab. And then how much time would you say you spend working on responding to DMs or looking through DMs and then creating the TikTok videos?
Yeah, it's probably a good 2 or 3 hours per day, like outside of work. It's probably a good 2 to 3 hours per day of content production, responding to messages, responding to emails, and then probably another hour per day of market research, just watching TikToks.
So that equates to about 4 hours a day, which is a part-time job.
Right. Yeah, it adds up for sure. And that's not every day. Maybe 2 to 4 hours a day on average, I would say.
That's a lot of time, though. Someone might look at it and say, oh, each one's only about a minute, but it is a commitment that you're investing in creating this audience.
Right. Yeah. Looking at a 1 minute video is not representative. And you don't kind of realize that until you start trying to produce that type of content regularly. It takes a really long time, and you get faster at it over time. But, recording the script and adding the closed captions and responding to comments, it takes a while.
Were you active on social media much before you started Dr. Knock?
No, essentially not at all. Like, I had my private Instagram. I still have my private Instagram, which, for friends and family, which I basically don't really log into now. Because, the social media, like the science social media, but not like public social media at all.
Was there one post when you first saw your following grow?
Yeah, back at the beginning of the pandemic, there's two that I can think of. One was comparing the trajectory of cases in the US to what had very recently happened in Italy, where Italy very quickly got out of control, and US was basically directly mirroring the exponential growth of cases, but nothing was bad here yet. And so there was a post where I was saying, like, this is about to get bad, that went pretty viral. That was one of them. And then a little bit later was a genetic comparison of two variants that came out of China. We have many more now, obviously, but people were interested in genomics of COVID. And that one went really well. And then I kind of stumbled forward from there.
Do you expect to grow outside of TikTok at all? Do you want to see this, your communication style, your audience transition over to another social media platform, or do you see it going some other direction?
I would like to, and there's no real reason I haven't, started making YouTube videos and been more active on Twitter recently, other than, like, I'm already at kind of a time cap. And so I think as I get more efficient, I would like to expand to using Twitter. I just got verified on Twitter a couple of days ago.
Congratulations.
So maybe now it's time to start using it. Maybe that's part of their ploy. Same thing on Instagram. I cross-post most of my videos from TikTok to Instagram at Dr. Knock. But I'd like to start making more like Instagram specific content, put more effort into stories and such like that. I would like to, it would be a lot easier if I wasn't also, doing actual work.
Yeah, I think one of the questions a lot of people have is, given the time commitment, especially as you just described it, making a 1 minute video can require 2 to 3 hours per day still. Do you get paid for it?
You do, not very much, not anywhere near enough to justify, hours worth of time. There's a function where you get paid, like, per number of views. And typically it ends.
The TikTok function?
It's through TikTok. Yeah.
Okay.
There's like a fund, and it's typically on the order of like a few cents per 1,000 views. So you can make a video with 50,000 views or 100,000 views and you get some money, but it's not very much at all. And so you can through other ways, like doing brand deals and such like that. But the financial component is not a good motivator to spend 3 or 4 hours a day doing it, for sure.
Your motivation was because of all the bad information you saw out there. Do you still see that bad information out there? Or do you see, as at least in the US, the pandemic has sort of been relegated a little bit to the backseat? We started to see people travel more, that request and that desire for scientific information may be going away?
Yeah, the misinformation, I would say, is as strong now as ever, particularly since rollout of the vaccines. And so we're seeing huge amounts of vaccine misinformation through TikTok, through all social media platforms right now. Um, to such an extent that, I actually feel kind of like the net effect of TikTok or of Instagram and social media. I don't think that there's more pro vaccine science on the platform. I think there's probably more misinformation if you count it, as number of views or as number of videos viral. And that's just because there's a limited number of medical professionals who consistently put out good content. But when it comes to misinformation, it can just be, one
Anyone.
person who makes one video that goes super viral in 24 hours and it gets 4 million views. There's more of that, unfortunately. And so there's a lot of work still to be done.
Since you mentioned the vaccines, I have to ask, are you being compensated in any way by pharmaceutical companies or those with an invested interest in pushing an agenda?
No, no one pays me anything to make any of the COVID information videos that I make. The company, even the company that I work for, like in my actual job, has nothing to do with COVID vaccines. In fact, we make therapeutics. So when you're thinking about treatments versus vaccines, if the vaccines work really well, which they do, the market for treatments is smaller. But even as someone who is involved in making treatments, that's good because we want society to go back to normal, and people are always going to need treatments. In a small percentage of breakthroughs, there's people who choose not to get vaccinated, but no, I don't make any money at all to say any of these things.
What would you say to somebody who wants to get started but might be a little bit hesitant to jump into this space?
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good," I think is something along those lines. Just start making content. It's going to be awful at first. Probably for your first 20 or 30 videos, it's going to flop, totally flop. But eventually you'll kind of figure out your style, figure out what kind of information resonates with people. And what you'll find after a month or two of making content regularly is that your reach is substantially wider than whatever you can reach in real life. Like I can post a video and talk to 30,000 people, 50,000 people, 200,000 people. The amount of time that would take me to do seminars with college classes or whatever to reach 50,000 people is way longer than the 2 hours it takes me to make that video. And that doesn't happen at first. And at first, you may only reach 10 people, but eventually you sort of learn, and it's a really rewarding process.
Were you surprised by how many people wanted to get scientific information from TikTok?
I was. 1 month in February 2020 or something, no one would have followed a PhD immunologist on TikTok, or a couple of people would have on Instagram, but it's sort of totally new and unexpected, which is a large part of why I didn't do social media ahead of time. There clearly was appetite for scientific content, but nothing so much as like it is now. And what I'm hoping is that this interest will translate even after the pandemic, after people get vaccinated. They'll still want to consume pro-health, medical, scientific information on social medias.
So is that your goal, to keep it going post-pandemic and maybe transition to some other topic area?
Yeah, I definitely plan to keep posting. If it's not information about COVID vaccines, information about how sleep affects health, or 3 tips to sleep better, or how pericardial fat influences your risk of heart failure, and how you can reduce pericardial fat. Like these sort of how-to types of videos that have an actionable thing, often related to your health, that are also interesting. So I don't know. I'm going to have to play around with that, but we'll see where it kind of leads.
Well, Dr. Knock, we will keep following you, keep watching at how you influence medicine and science on your TikTok videos at Dr. Knock.
Thanks for chatting. This was great.
Thank you.